While we are following very closely the off-cycle elections scheduled for Saturday in Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi State.
So we are counting in
less
hours
than 12
now.
hours.
Right.
All of the hard work on the side of the political stakeholders. You know, usually before election they say some people are the pretenders, the other people are the contenders. It is only after result you can tell.
Now you determine who is who.
Who the real contenders are.
The electorate are to decide tomorrow.
But 13 political parties have signed a peace accord to ensure a peaceful governorship election in Bayelsa State.
And this is in the build-up to the November the 11th governorship election in the state. The convener of the National Peace Committee, Bishop Matthew Kuka, is emphatic on the need to have a peaceful election. While the 13 chairmen and their candidates took turns signing the peace accord as commitment to a peaceful election in the state, one candidate, however, was absent at the peace accord signing. Well, joining us now is the convener, Peace Accord Committee, Bishop Matthew Kuka. Bishop, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you very much. The National Peace Committee, not the Peace Accord Committee.
All right, National Peace Committee, right. Now, Bishop, so many persons have been speaking with regards to the signing of this peace bond by political parties ahead the election, and they have said that not much change whenever they sign this peace accord. Talk to us really the essence of this peace accord and why it has not really been achieving the results that it is supposed to achieve in the first place.
Well, you made the accusation, so you reframe your question. I don't know what you mean by it has not been achieving the results. Can
because there are the issues. People talk about the fact that the commitment of political parties to the signing of this accord is what is brought to question when they see what happened during election. We still see violence marring the election over the years, despite they signing this accord.
Well, would it have been better if they didn't sign the accord? I think the first thing to understand is that what we have is a moral voice. And the question to ask is, what if they didn't sign the peace accord at all? And percentage-wise, I think if you want to be fair to the political class itself, the volume of infractions and so on is, in many places is not sufficiently significant. But even more importantly, these are law and order issues. So, and there are procedures and processes for prosecuting people who fall foul of the law. So I think that's where you should be looking, as opposed to saying that we've done this and nothing has happened. It's not, the Peace Committee has a moral voice, and it exhorts people to be of good behavior and to obey the law. But so when you fall foul of the law, there are procedures for dealing with that. So I don't think you should blame the Peace Committee, imply that its work is not significant, because the opposite is the case.
Yeah, perhaps you should help us paint a better picture as a stakeholder in this business, what you've discovered and monitored over the years. How peaceful have our elections become, having done this over the years, Bishop?
I think we need to be fair to ourselves. We're relatively new in this game of politics. We're very new in this game of democracy. And like everywhere else in the world, even those democracies that have been settled more or less due to the amount of time that they've been on the ground, whether it's Europe or America, you're stretching between 100 and 200 years. People are still grappling with this problem because every generation faces its own challenges. I think significantly, if we do a little bit of a political analysis of where we have come from the 60s, the nature of the criminal actions that were perpetrated during elections, there have been significant changes. We are on a path to hopefully improving the confidence of the electorate, and only science can do this. Anything that you are subject to human manipulation you'll face this kind of consequences. So I think that INEC has done and continues to do, to make its own effort to improve on the quality of the elections. And in a sense, The elections on Saturday should be a test run of the things that we should expect, and we are hopeful that the issues we contested in the last elections in May will not repeat themselves in this off-cycle elections, because first of all, we are dealing with only 3 states. Secondly, INEC would have had enough time, to get its act together. So we are hoping that, every election will be a lesson, and we'll learn the lessons and eliminate the things we can eliminate, so that it's a pretty long journey. But I'm sure we are going to get to a point in which elections in Nigeria will be less violent, less chaotic. You must also address the issue of the quality of infrastructure that we have. And then the fact that you're dealing with a largely illiterate population that in very many cases cannot access or doesn't have the amount of knowledge that is required for people to conform to the laws and regulations that guide elections.
Well, I'm sure quite a number of Nigerians will share in your optimism, and it's why we've seen a lot of anticipation for the off-cycle election. But you were in Bayelsa yourself a few days ago. What's your assessment of the readiness of stakeholders and the body language you read in the room?
This is, first of all, I think for us as ordinary Nigerians, civil society groups, indeed, the length and breadth of Nigeria, I think we must take responsibility for a lot of the things that have gone wrong. And what I mean is, after we cast these elections, after people are sworn in, the governors, people tend to just create barricades around government house and so on. And the populace largely just looks on in abeyance. As you can see, even amidst the difficulties of what is happening in Gaza, people are still out on the streets. They are demonstrating. It is the business of politicians to make promises that they probably don't have the intention of keeping. It is our responsibility to hold their feet to the fire constantly, reminding them of the promises that they made. So I think it is not the fault of politicians that they are getting away with so much, because Nigerians don't like to engage the political process. So we don't wait until it is time for election before we start running up and down again, repeating the same thing, and everything is captured in just 2 or 3 days. So we need to improve the quality of our interrogation of the political structure. And this is the job for the media, for you and I. And the media in Nigeria is doing quite an excellent job. But it's also the work of civil society. It's the work of other non-state actors. So we have a responsibility, because that is how politics and democracy can be strengthened. As people, it's like pedaling a bicycle. When you stop, you stop. So we're not waiting for INEC to do only the things that INEC has to do. We as citizens must also be responsible for getting value for our money.
Right. We have been seeing critical stakeholders that you have just mentioned, talking about civil society, talking about yourself, speaking, to the issues, speaking, critically about the challenges we are facing as a democracy. We have seen the people also try to hold the political elite to account, but there seemed to be a missing gap. What could that be that we are not getting to that point where we begin to see some level of change in our democratic process and our democracy?
Look, I've said it severally. After elections, once people have been sworn in, a vital ingredient of democracy is the streets. We must be ready and willing, to go out and protest against bad roads, against lack of water, against health conditions, against the situation that we are in. Look around and look at the quality of schools. I went to a community, some time ago, and they were telling me they have a local government chairman that they see only once in 2 months, and that he comes in and spends 2 hours and then vanishes. Now, you don't need the governor, you don't need the president to tell you that if you elected this man to represent you or woman to represent your community, and is an absentee person, and only comes, one day when he comes, let the community just block the road and tell the man, you are not going anywhere. Now, once you create that kind of a scenario in one local government, it will naturally have a knock-on effect, because people will then learn to behave. We must learn to, let me use the word, to harass those into whose hands we have entrusted the resources of our country. So a situation in which, as I said, we cast our votes, And we simply, every time a governor is coming, we all go out dancing. Every time a local government chairman is coming, we all go out dancing, and that's all we can do. Then we get what we deserve. So I think we need to improve. Oh, look, even in our traditional societies, we knew how to disgrace people now. And if a man or a woman who has been elected to public office is not performing, it doesn't matter who they are. In Britain, they used to stone politicians with eggs. In other places, I'm not agitating violence. But look, we're even living in a violent environment. But we cannot continue like this. So we must find a way of penalizing our politicians rather than simply behave. Because look, politics is the only thing that there is no practice for. We've not developed a political culture in Nigeria. Okay? There are no people who will tell you, oh, we've come so far by following X, Y, Z. You just hear people's names come out. It is the governor that decides which of his boys is going to make governor. You can't run a country like that. There must be a way that ordinary people can know that this man is worthy or woman can represent us because we have seen a record of what they've been able to do. So we are letting our politicians get away with so much. So we are not as innocent as we want to look. We have to devise various strategies of engaging the political class, because without this engagement, people will not improve the quality of what they are doing. They are going to continue to treat us as, they come to us, they throw a little bit of a few pennies here and there, and then we scamper around, and then they go back to where they've come from. But really, if you are representing us as a senator, if you are representing us in the federal house or in the state house, and we don't see you, we should be able to locate where you are and go to ask you whether you are still representing us or not. By the time you've done this thing to one or two people, they will learn their lesson.
Bishop, many of the younger generation will be jealous of how much fire you still have in your bone, even as a septuagenarian, and how much of human rights you're still quite passionate about.
Right.
But they say that it is a strategy on the part of the political elite to keep the people poor, so that they don't have as much passion as you have right now to discuss these issues and to also ask questions. It's why vote buying is a thing during our election. What do you consider is the solution here? You talked about a local government chairman. The ordinary or the average politician as we know it will dole out cash when it comes into the neighborhood. That's the language that many of the people you're talking about understand.
Well, look, I mean, the percentage of people who are educated in Nigeria compared to those with functional education, this is one of the biggest problems in the country. And those of us on whom the community has invested resources to give us education, by whatever means, we have an obligation to our people. I say the things I say and I do the things I do precisely because, one, I know we can do better. And two, as a priest, I have an idea about what God's intentions are for ordinary human beings, irrespective of social class or irrespective of where they come from. I have an idea about how resources can best be managed. So, for example, I mean, we cannot go on like this. We cannot say, for example, amidst all these difficulties and challenges, you're hearing the conversation going on in the National Assembly about the amount of resources that are going to be spent on buying cars for people. Where are these people going to go to? Then after 4 years, you're going to spend the same resources. Now, if we are spending so much, there must be evidence of what we are getting back. So, indeed, I think it is the responsibility of those of us who are educated, but unfortunately for us in Nigeria, a lot of the elites have decided on strategies of compromise. So we know that Nigeria is corrupt, and maybe we quarrel over this thing. That is largely because we just want a bit of we want a part of the corruption. So the average person struggling to be a minister or struggling to get into power, people know, and I'm sorry, I'm adjusting this earpiece, but people know that they are probably just jealous of those who are already there. Now, we cannot have a country in which we are measuring our progress by the number of people who are enjoying on our behalf. Right. So I think that the young people who have a future must also become sufficiently, anger is let me put it, it's a right. The only thing is what to do with the anger. And you can transform it into righteous indignation by saying, this is not the way I should be living in a country that is so richly endowed as Nigeria is.
Right.
So, and then of course, the other thing is that Mrs. Ngozi well helped us when she decided on this strategy of making the local government funds, how much it was going to every local government. She made it available, and I think that information is still available. Unfortunately for us, people are not interested in finding this information, because if we, the elite, have an idea about what is coming into our local government councils, we also have an obligation.
Bishop, I need to quickly ask this question,
interrogate,
because our time is, for this interview is wrapping up quickly. So I want to quickly ask this question about the changing dynamics of our politics. What we see now is identity politics and violence being said to dominate our political landscape. I wonder how concerning this is for you, because yes, you have touched on this, but the solutions we are looking at to addressing these issues, are we tailoring it appropriately to addressing them?
Well, identity politics only manifests itself. It's a function of the poverty of the environment around which we are living. And the Nigerian political elite has not helped matters. It has created and given us the impression that I will have the right as a governor to decide that my village, which is in the middle of nowhere, a university is sited in my village, or a college is sited in my village, or the road is built to my village. So people become conscious of identity, not because identity is not important. Identity is a tool of transaction. But if you create the impression that you have done this to your community and people can notice a measurable change in the quality of life of people from your community, there's no reason why they would not be asking themselves, why are we where we are? There is a theory in sociology called the theory of relative deprivation. That is, people compare their conditions. And unless I have a reason for being poor, I must ask myself. So somebody will tell you, if you are giving jobs only to people of a particular religion, or a particular tribe, or even a particular gender, others are bound to ask themselves the questions. So identity politics have become salient precisely because the politicians themselves have made identity politics what it is today, because of the nature of the poverty around which we live.
It's amazing the way you've put it, Bishop. Nobody ever made anger look so cool. You said anger is a right, and then there's need for righteous indignation. Good place to leave it. Bishop Matthew Kuka is the Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese and convener, National Peace Committee. Thank you for talking to us on the program tonight.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you very much.